Yeah, we're gonna get started right away here and talk about the game that's going on right at noon. The Detroit Lions taking on the Houston Texans. This game has shootout written all over it. That is only if the Lions can actually score on offense. Last week they got shut out. It was embarrassing. It was honestly embarrassing for the team as a whole to not score a single point against Carolina, who's one of the worst run defenses in the league. I understand they didn't have DeAndre Swift. Hopefully he's back tomorrow. But really, Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson couldn't find the end zone once. I find that really hard to believe. Let's start off, though, talking about DeAndre Swift. I have him right now at number 4 or 5 in my rankings. He's extremely high. I think he's going to feast tomorrow against the Texans. What about you guys?
Shane, I completely disagree with you. I think you have him too low. I have him at number 2 in my rankings, which is a ridiculously hot take, but it's because I think he is going to absolutely feast. I think he's going to be the one eating the turkey leg after that game. I think he's going to have an insane game against that defense.
You have him at 2? Are you? Come on, really?
Nope. I stand by it. I absolutely stand by it.
I understand the matchups there. I understand the carries are there.
The talent's
the
there.
Offense is not.
The talent's there. The carries are there. The matchups there. What else are you missing?
The offense is not there. The rest of that offense is not there. They don't score enough to give him solid production. He's not going to have enough end zone opportunities to give him solid production. I understand, Shane, as you said, this has shootout written all over it, but the Lions didn't get in the end zone last week. They didn't score last week. They put up a 0 spot. I still think DeAndre Swift's a really good running back. I agree with you. The talent's there. The carries are there. The volume's there. The matchup's there. That's why I have him at 12. I think he's a low-end running back 1. You have him over Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, all of those guys? Just seems it just seems kind of off the wire to me. I get it. I like DeAndre Swift a lot, but he's put up over 20 points twice this entire season, and he's had a few games of single-digit production. I just don't think
let's take a look at those. Let's take a look at those guys. Aaron Jones is going up against the Bears, who have a very good run defense. Nick Chubb doesn't get receptions. Derrick Henry is going up against the Colts, and then Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara with Taysom Hill there. It's looking a little bit like a Kenyon Drake and a Kyler Murray situation there. I don't trust that. That's why DeAndre Swift has a great matchup. I really think he should get almost all of the carries. I really expect him to start being a bell cow back there for Detroit. And the talent is obviously there. That's why I love DeAndre Swift so much. You guys said it. They scored 0 points last week. You know who was missing from their offense last week? DeAndre Swift. They're going to feed DeAndre Swift.
Jack, I'm going to steal a line right out of your book. I agree with Lucas on this one. Literally, you say the single-digit games. Take that Indianapolis game out because, again, the Colts have a great defense. Lions couldn't get the ball moving, really. I know that you could say maybe against the Texans, but the Texans' defense is awful against the run. You look at what he did against Washington, which is a fantastic, fantastic defense this year. Very underrated, especially against the run. 16 attempts, 81 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, which is fantastic. And then 5 receptions for 68 yards and the touchdown. That amounts to 26 fantasy points in PPR. You're giving me those numbers. You're definitely a top 3 running back this week. I think Swift is going to have a day, like Lucas said. Lucas, I don't think that's a hot take at all. It technically is, but I'm on your side of the ball here. I think DeAndre Swift is going to be the best player on Thanksgiving tomorrow, regardless of the matchup, regardless of the game. DeAndre Swift is Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Yep. I completely agree. I agree with what you said, and obviously you're agreeing with what I said. So nothing else.
I think that puts us in mutual agreement for that one.
I think you nailed it, Shane.
When you look though at the rest of their offense, Jack, you said it, they didn't score last week, and that's because also they didn't have Kenny Golladay, and they still won't have Kenny Golladay. He's going to be out for this game. I think he's doubtful right now, but he's definitely not going to play after not really practicing at all on this short week. That leaves Marvin Jones, who had 4 receptions, 51 yards on 6 targets last week, and TJ Hawkinson, who had 4 catches for 68 yards on 7 targets in last week's game against Carolina, as the 2 primary pass catchers, along with Swift, obviously, for Matthew Stafford. Does Jones have a chance at finishing as a top 30 wide receiver? I know we say it every week that there's a chance, but Jones hasn't really been that this season. So against the Texans, can he do it this week?
Yeah, 100%. The Texans defense is in the bottom third against wide receivers fantasy-wise. They got beat up pretty badly by New England in Week 11. It wasn't insane, but, it's New England whose pass game hasn't been fantastic recently. Marvin Jones has been good when Kenny Golladay hasn't been there. He's obviously still inconsistent, but that tag's on him. It's kind of like he's very – I'm trying to formulate what I want to say here because he's kind of a weird player, right? So it's a weird thing to wrap my head around with him because the target numbers are sometimes there, they're sometimes not there, and he's a touchdown-dependent wide receiver. He's had double-digit points in his past 5 games, which is pretty good. Last week he had 9 points. I mean, he's all over the place, but can he finish as a top 30 wide receiver? Yes, because he's done it a few times in the past already. So I think he's definitely has potential there. I think he's a solid flex play this week.
Can he finish as a top 20 wide receiver? Absolutely. I mean, Marvin Jones is a boomer bust guy. He could absolutely boom, especially with Kenny Golladay not in the lineup. Do I expect him to? No. I'm looking at my rankings. I probably have him a bit low at 47, but I would still, I'm looking at the guys that have above him. Can I put him above Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, Nelson Aguilar, Tim Patrick? I don't know if I can. That's the issue, which is why, there are so many guys I'd rather start than Marvin Jones at this.
It's just funny because you look at the games that he's been in this year. He had a 2-touchdown game on 3 catches, 39 yards, and that was the game against Indianapolis, which I just mentioned is one of the tougher defenses in the league. So Jones is inconsistent, but in a way where I don't think you can ever feel comfortable starting him. But let's move on now to the Houston Texans, the other side of the ball. Deshaun Watson had himself a day last week against the Patriots, absolutely dominated them, but he wasn't in our top 3 for quarterbacks this week. And the Detroit Lions obviously don't have a top-tier defense. Is there a case to be made for Watson to be a top 3 QB play this week?
Yeah, I think there's a case. I have him top 5 this week. I think that's a good spot for him. I don't have him over a Mahomes or a Murray just because they've been so good. I'm also hesitant to put him over a Wilson, even though I think the way Russell Wilson's played the past couple of weeks, he should deserve to be there. I think Watson's been playing fantastically on a really not great Texans team overall, and now he has a matchup that's really in his favor. He had 31 points last week. You'll take that. You'll love that. He's been consistently good. He's been Deshaun Watson. He's exactly what you'd expect out of him. So I think there's definitely a case to be made for a top 3 quarterback play. I'm more comfortable with him at top 5, though. I still have Allen, Herbert, Murray, and Mahomes.
Okay, more than just is there a case to be made? I have him as a top 3 quarterback. In fact, I have him as a top 2 quarterback. I have Deshaun Watson at 2 this week over Russell Wilson, over Patrick Mahomes, over Justin Herbert, over Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. I love Deshaun Watson this week. He went off last week, and his matchup this week is insane. Give me some Deshaun Watson this week.
Here's a problem with Watson, though. He's losing some key guys on his offense, including some of his wide receivers, and that is Kenny Stills and Randall Cobb. Both are going to be out tomorrow. Still obviously has Will Fuller and still has Brandon Cooks. But do you guys want to hear a really good sleeper play for tomorrow? If you play DFS, I think this guy has a very, very good chance to be one of those very cheap money maker guys, and that's Kiki Cutie. Last week he had 2 catches for 10 yards, not the greatest, but he scored a touchdown on 4 targets. We've seen him have big games before. I think it was last year when he was a little bit fantasy relevant. So if you're looking for a name to start as a very deep sleeper, I think QT could be that guy. Otherwise, Fuller and Cooks, both guys could finish as top 15 plays this week.
More than that, Randall Cobb is on injured reserve, which opens up more targets there.
That's what I said. Yes, Stills and Cobb are both out.
Oh, absolutely. Then DFS, that's an excellent.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I like Will Fuller a lot this week, and I like Brandon Cooks a lot this week. I think they're both very good plays. With Will Fuller, I was down on him a little bit earlier in the season. He was my sell candidate. This is not the matchup I wanted to sell him for. This is going to be the best matchup he has, and this probably will be the best matchup he has for the rest of the season. I think this is going to be the game where he really puts it all together and he gets in the end zone maybe once, maybe twice. And I think this could be a big Will Fuller game. After this, the schedule toughens up for the Texans, though. But right now, yeah, I like both those receivers.
Watch, we're hyping up this game so much right now. It's going to end up like 10-7. And it's going to be like,
That's just how it
field goals and maybe a lucky defensive touchdown. Before we move on to the next game, last game, sadly, of the day tomorrow, I want to just talk about the running game for Houston because last week, Duke Johnson had his second straight game of being the lead running back there. However, he didn't produce for the second straight game. First game, I'll give him a pass because that was like the hurricane monsoon, and I don't think anyone had a really good game. I think that was when they took on Cleveland. But now, second week, very nice matchup against the Patriots. Ran the ball 10 times for 15 yards, didn't get a touchdown. Saw 5 targets, though, caught 3 of them for 20 yards. But just in terms of his rushing ability, Watson beat him. He had 6 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. If you're starting Duke Johnson, are you just a tad bit worried that Deshaun Watson might steal some of the goal line work from him or might just take away some of those rushing attempts that he would normally get?
Yeah, but aren't you always concerned with that, with Deshaun Watson? You'd be concerned that was David Johnson and not Duke Johnson as well. That's just what Deshaun Watson does. It's how he's been his entire career. He's a running quarterback who's really, really good running the ball. He's really, really good throwing the ball. But Detroit's defense, we're hyping them up, this matchup up, for the Texans because Detroit's passing defense is in the bottom half of the league. Their run defense is quite literally the worst run defense against opposing fantasy running backs in the entire NFL. This is the matchup you would want for Duke Johnson. If you have Duke Johnson, you fire him up as a flex play because of this matchup. The volume's still there. He's still getting enough carries to be able to garner attention in your lineup, and I think he's still a very, very solid play overall just because the matchup is just so good. We saw Mike Davis had a good game last week. He's still getting double-digit carries, 16, 14, then 10 carries. So, yeah, fire up Duke Johnson.
Yeah, look, I've got him as a very low-end RB2. I think he's got a chance to be much higher than that. I also think he has a chance to be lower than that. The matchup's great. Duke Johnson is a guy who I would start this week.
Just want to give a quick shout out in case this does happen with the Texans wide receiving core depleted. My man, formerly drafted by the Jets, Chad Hansen, is on the Texans practice squad. Fingers crossed that maybe he gets called up, can show a little bit of what he can do because I think he has a chance to be a great wide receiver in this league.